Hi guys, it's another episode of OptiChillcode. I have been doing something not on the stream last time. It's gonna be random because I have been looking at some other things about performance and STD vectors and cache optimizations. Although those would be better for some optimosophy. I think that's gonna be 3 hours where I just strip it myself. Anyway, as I'm thinking what to do. First of all, yeah, I changed the color here. I might for fun change a bit the display every time. Maybe with other screens. To give some variation even for the thumbnails. It's not OptiChillcode 0, 1, 2, 3 in the title here. I can't even bother. Although it's in the title of the video. And I thought I might do this Tuesday and Saturday most usually, unless something happens and I move. I might do 2 times a week or one, not 3 times. I thought about 3 times, Tuesday, Thursday. I might pollute my channel too much with this. It doesn't have to be so frequent. And maybe I'll go back from where I stopped. I figured out enough stuff and then I was looking at some other stuff anyway. Now for music is also, it doesn't matter, just I put one of the other radio channels. There is maximum beats, there are the fat tracks, which is good. These are all in the same style, ambient, drum and bass, and it's something to get you into the mood. Eventually I might put some demo scene music or something else. My channel is not monetized, so I don't think that would be a problem. Else I look at other solutions, but every episode something else. Unless I have nothing and I just put the same thing. Anyway, one thing, I was working. The Bugo engine is the main engine and I still haven't ported stuff from one side to the other, but here... Oh, something funny. Do you remember last time I was trying to make a grid of 256 by 256. This is not just one quad, these are many. And it was very slow, and I found the reason. It had nothing to do with my engine, it had to do with this. I was doing some kind of search function in one quad, just one quad. And I forgot it. I simply forgot it. So thankfully it wasn't something else with my engine, it's simply that I forgot a very bad search that happens for a single quad previously, or at least one quad made of 2 triangles. And it was just a hacky code because I wanted to extract some data for some CPC stuff I wanted to try on the CPC. I wanted to extract pre-calculated scanline UV coordinates, texture coordinates on the left side, on the right side, and the step, the incremental step. So that I don't have to build I have my old 3D engine on CPC, but I just wanted to test something with horizontal texture interpolator and write some Z80 code for that. So I wanted to extract something, but for some reason I was failing also. because a quad is made of two triangles, it goes like that, and there is a middle edge, and I was just searching for the min-max after rendering two triangles, and I forgot that anyway. But I changed direction, and last time in the mesh we introduced we still have polygons num here and poly index. We don't have this information here. Poly data has num point, but I introduced something so that I can store quad indices instead of triangle. It's not in the mesh. The mesh is agnostic a bit. It's like, give me some polygon indices. It could be anything. And the polygon data are gonna hold the number of points now. And generally I did some structure that I might pass in the main engine. And now I realize something, that now my gen mesh function, the mesh info, I have this boolean gen quads, and I just hacked it. So okay, if it's gen quads initialized different, this is the number of triangles, the number of quads. I might do a unified thing in the future. What if you want to keep both triangles at quad? But that could be useful for a modeler maybe. But now it doesn't work like this. It's either one or the other. It's not entirely designed yet. I assume things. I assume that I initialize something with quads, and if I see quads, I'm gonna render quads. And this affects very few things. Most of the things, the vertices are the same. It's only here, if generate quads, I'm adding 4 points here, 4 indices. Else I'm adding the 6 indices for the two triangles. And I loop over the two triangles and add twice the polygon number of points, 3 number of points, 4. Now when I did that, I wanted to test it. Initially, just for testing sake, I deleted that. Initially, I would draw triangles twice, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted to make things lighter in a way, so that I don't have to iterate through 6 edges, find the left and right. That's gonna be also good for my data extractions for a single quad. For pre-calculated data. But now I'm just getting the number of points, getting one more vertex, and I'm passing the fourth. And it was easier than I thought. The way I have structured the whole thing. If it's triangle, it's gonna get the 3 points. It gets the vertical edges to find, I don't know how wasteful that is, to find the min-max so that it knows which scan lines, the range of the scan line. And then it prepares the edge data. It walks through every edge from point 0 to 1, vertex 0 to 1, vertex 1 to 2, and 2 to 0. And this is gonna fill some left-right edges that I will later draw. And this is a function pointer that could be flat shaded, gross shaded, extra. And it also, I thought previously, if I do the quad rendering, I have to replace all these functions, but no. It's just one more point. And I'm preparing the edges for the 4. 0, 1, 1, 2, 2. And I've just So I might be walking through its edge. It doesn't matter if the edge goes from up to down or down to up. It doesn't matter if V0 and V, if the points, I don't have to sort the points vertically. And I have all prepared edges. List, float, full, texture, nodes, buffer, and so on. And you know, I'll work from up to down. And interpolate. Maybe I do, okay, maybe I do some. Yeah, I'm only checking if it's the left or right, depending on the inclination. If the vertical coordinate is less, the one above to below or below to above. I know the winding. And that works really well. And I briefly tested it. So here, by passing false, 256 by 256. And I froze the camera in this place and we get about 70 something frames, 72, 73, 77. And when I make true, it's gonna generate the quads and it's gonna work on fewer polygons, it's gonna work on fewer edges. It's gonna produce the same result and see the frame rate. The frame rate goes to 100 something from 70. And it's possible to go more. Now I will show you the funny thing. I'm still doing near affine mapping. There is no perspective correction. Maybe I can get it. Yes. So this is the triangle. There is some distortion. Let's make it equal. That's the size there. I should make it analogous. So this is the result of the affine mapping. I might have showed you that before. You see, even if you see what's straight towards the arrows, it's distorted. And also if you look diagonal, it might be less distorted. I know why. Interesting enough. And if you generate the quad, it's still distorted. I thought the distortion won't be. So if you watch diagonal, it's distorted but in a different way. And generally speaking, the quads, the two triangles would have the interpolation factor will change suddenly at the diagonals. Now here the interpolation factor might be changing at the ends of the quads. This is made of many quads, but you can't see it. But because it's quads on a regular grid, when you look straight, there is no distortion. A floor mapper straight, there is no distortion. When you are working with quads and interpolating the quads, when you're looking straight, it's better. And you still have the distortion. Now if you put Bugo, it looks very bad. With Bugo, you don't see it. With a regular texture, you might. Okay, and if you look vertically, there is no distortion, of course. No perspective. The Z is constant. Now Z is constant. If you look straight, Z is also constant. Z is always constant in a scan line. It aligns with the way the polygons are spread. So the affine mapping is not very visible unless you have some... Even with the triangles. Now I'm showing the triangles. I cannot see it either. I haven't made here the size analogous with the grid subdivision. It should have been analogous, like I want size 256 units regardless. But I think I have done it in the newer code. So you see there is some distortion there. And of course now the polygons disappear very close. This is the same thing with the 3DO. And now with quads. With quads you don't see, but you might see something else. This quad is much more scaled than that quad. So it might be disanalogous. There is distortion. But you know, if you subdivide enough, grid, okay. If you subdivide enough, even this is good. Fewer distortion, still apparent. And that's it. So it used to be that, which is very extreme subdivision. 64,000 polygons. And I gained something. Where it in me? Oh, that's a bit longer. Yeah, I'm just gonna do some stuff and I finished Test Drive Unlimited now on the PS. I did 99% because you have to get all the houses and all the cars, to get 100%. And at some point, the game gave me all the cars. Sorry, all the houses. I finished the event, the game, which doesn't happen in the other versions on the PlayStation 3 PC and Xbox. But this is the PlayStation 2 one. PlayStation 2 version. And I open my map and I'm like, I was looking for some car in one of my 5 houses, and then I see like 56 houses, a lot of green dots on the map, like what is this? And then I realized, oh, the game gave me all the houses. But at some point, because I was lost and I needed money to buy the rest of the cars, I sold few houses, and I sold the house that is like 10 millions, which is, it takes you a long to collect those. And I realized at the very end, and when you sell things, you sell them at a lower price than what you can buy it. I realized, oops, to make 100% I have to get all the houses, and I I'm missing 2 houses. One is 10 millions and the other is 3 millions. And it could take me hours of playing the same race again and again and again. And so I said stop, okay, I'm at 99%. I finished all the races and all the clubs. And I was having 30 hours in this game. And I want to play something else. And I'm thinking to look at PlayStation 2 games that are classics, and one game is of course Shadow of the Colossus. That might be some remaster or something, or not, or the original. That's the one game I want to play, because it feels a bit like a Proto Souls thing. It has the atmosphere of Dark Souls, but it's a different game from a different team. And that team has also made ISO. You are escorting a princess. You move through world. It has the same texture, the same moodiness. And I read somewhere some of the creators of Dark Souls, they mentioned this game, like they had some inspiration. And I bought both those games on PS2. Maybe I'll try to put my. It's harder to get into games you don't know. Oh my! And this moody, old ancient ruins, and this is really Dark Souls 1 in a way. And also, I'm searching for hidden gems, not the most famous games from PS2. I could play some God of War or something else that I haven't played. I could explore things. Also now I want to relax and play racing games. But I think Ico or Shadow of the Colossus could be a relaxing thing. And I also got this one, Okami, that has a very special style. I was searching for hidden gems, not the common stuff. And I have this one, I have the CDs and everything, and that could be awesome. And I don't know if I could look at some other racing game or some other. I don't want to play God of War yet. Because it's a lot of these games in consoles are very spectacle fighting, a lot of things are happening in the screen. I want something more calm. And I think the next one, I could start with ISO, because it was before Shadow of the Colossus. I like to start from the prehistory of something and then go up. However, when I started, I have King's Field 4, I might replay it. When I got into King's Field series, I didn't start with the first one, I started with the King's Field 4 and then I went backwards, and it is my favorite experience. Again, it has this moody green, and maybe there are some better screenshots. Ancient ruins. It has the vibes, man. Yeah, it does have the vibes. This grey, moody, foggy environments, and it was a big world to explore. And I guess the game that introduced me to Kingsfield likes, which is the prehistory of FromSoft. It was Lunacy. It's a modern indie game in, I think, in Unity engine. It's really good. The atmosphere and the music of this is it's amazing. And Kingsfield like is a theme now. It's like a genre. It's really 3D dungeon crawlers, and it's really like Ultima Underworld in a way. Ultima Underworld is similar. I just tried to play it, and I realized you can walk further away, drop into some underground river, and go away. You can go far away from the beginning without so it has the same sense of a big world, that everything is connected in this world. So it's not entirely linear. But if you move too far away from the beginning without getting some levels, some experience first, it might be tough. And I went away. I just played and just was walking, and then I have to return, and I returned from another path. And I was like, wow, okay, this is Proto Kingsfield. It's not impossible that FromSoft was inspired by this game, and maybe Ultima Underworld was the. It is older than Kingsfield, and it's the same vibe. First-person, 3D polygon-based dungeon crawler with a big world where everything is connected. Anyway, it's fun. It's fun. It's fun if code chill. OptiChillcode is like ranting about stuff. Even what games I'm gonna play next, and you know, with this engine, the Buko engine, I want to make actually I might make something different first. But I might want to make a Kingsfield at some point. You see, I have this grid now. Oh, and there's the other grid is from the skybox. And the skybox grid is never translated, only rotates. And it's rendered in first before everything else. Even if it looks above the ground, you're gonna have the ground render and then the skybox. I have this logic with the layers. I add all the objects in lists. The object might be sorted together, then the polygons are sorted. Now, here I have Z buffer though. In 3DO there is no Z buffer, because I'm using the hardware, and in 3DO I do a polygon sorting, but here I decided to go with the Z buffer and not do the polygon sorting, unless I can do both. And I have used code from 3DO to this engine and back, and the big skybox is on layer 0. So I start and I render layer 0, then layer 1, then layer 2. And when I am adding objects, I say I'm gonna add you to. The floor is added to layer 1. So it's the second thing that's rendered after the skybox. And both of them, this mode has no Z buffer, it's pure texture, no Z buffer. For both the skybox and the floor. Now if I press a button, this shaded thing has gross shading, and it does have Z buffer, even if it's not needed, because I haven't made a version. But I wasn't planning, and you see, the frame rate is 151, when I change it, it goes to something way less. And here we render both the skybox and the floor, so there is overdraw. When you look there, it renders the skybox below And on layer 2 now I add the rest of the objects. So all the objects are rendered last. So technically, if I was able, I have put a stop. You cannot go further down. If I disable that and go below, the rendering would be not correct. The floor would be rendered before the objects, and the object would be rendered in front. We could try it just for fun. Because of the layer logic, and this is something that you control. Oh, wait a minute, no? Oh, what? And I have the crashes now. I can't bother with that now. Yeah, no. The movement happens above, but then I say, okay, if it's less than the... And I also use the viewer height, it's like I'm in a collider. Anyway, so now I should be able, yeah. However, because of back face scaling, you wouldn't even see the... Unless when I create the grid, and this is gonna be slow, I pass through, so that it creates two-sided version, double the amount of polygons. So when I move down, you see the other side. But now there are two sets of polygons. All of the micro triangles here above and the ones below. But now you see the object should be above, but because the floor is on layer 1, it's rendered before every object. And then I render, and also it doesn't have Z buffer. Now if I will enable Z buffer, Guro Z buffer, there. Okay, there you have it. This version that also does this Guro shading on the edges. Those versions have Z buffer. But this version doesn't have Z buffer. But this has Z buffer. You even see it here, some of the object is touching. The cow. The way I place this object is I get their bounding box and I clamp them the half height of their bounding box to the ground. But change to the non-Z buffer version. It's pretty cool. Oh, I just realized I have 128 by 128. If I make 256, it's gonna be slow, isn't it? It's a longer grid. Too many. Yeah, I put false there, so... I think the mouse, I move very slow with the mouse, and I thought I made it relevant to the, you see the distortion if you go very slow, even with that grid. Anyway, let's revert some things. Is that the only thing I changed? I think so. And for example, I generate the mesh and I create the object where I pass the mesh, and I have, it's a nice system now. Texture, no Z buffer, no lighting, no environment mapping. I made a system where this parameter is the number of textures, and you could pass finally more than one texture, and this text on the texture is a double pointer, so that I can initialize a lot of textures. And I have tested this. I can say, okay, create 4 textures, and there are parameter data in the poly data, I think. Texture index, and it works really well because I need to expand this to, most of the stuff I did is just one texture wrapped over an object. The environment mapped the object, for example, and I need to expand. So, am I going to by the way, new skyboxes. That fits, the colors fit very well this floor. I have plans for this floor. If I ever want to make a 3D scene with an endless infinite floor, I don't want to do this subdivision necessary. I might try to make some demo scene floor, infinite plane thing, in various ways, similar like the Sega Saturn with the VDP can draw infinite floor, because it's great for some kinds of game, like instead of subdividing. I'm planning to do more with this engine, not just polygons. Add demo scene effects, add filters, blurs and stuff. It would be so cool if I could combine a plane that is not made of polygons but infinite plane, and then combine with a scene. Like, I don't know, for a game like Virtua Fighter or something. Because the Sega Saturn, that's what it does for a lot of the floor mapping. If it's a big floor mapping, and not just a floor from a room. Or a sky siling, a cloud siling, things like that. This is gonna be very cool. Anyway, I'll go on some other stuff. The thing is, in this Buko engine spin-off for CPC, it's not just for CPC, it's a fork of the other one to experiment, but it's an older fork. Ah, I had that open. In that engine, this is where I refactor this quad thing, so that my mesh has quads too, but this mesh structure is very different than the others, so I have to unify them somehow, because there are some good stuff. For example, now the poly data has the num points and I move the normal here. But if you go in this one, now the poly data has also an alpha. I might want to do alpha textures, alpha quads, blended quads. It has the texture index because I added the multiple textures per mesh later. And it doesn't have the normal because the normal, this is something new I did. The normal is here, the polygon normal. The vertex normal can be here. So on the other side now, the vertex normal is here, but the polygon normal is here. And it makes more sense. And I prefer it like that because both to organize and I realize you get the mesh poly data. The render poly data is the destination, the mesh poly data, and you have RGB that multiplies by shade, and the shade is mesh poly data again by normal. So normal and RGB are very close together in the same struct. So I guess this is better for the cache if we care about the cache. I mean, you have to test it, but it's nice that it's together. Because in the new engine, I was getting the mesh poly data for the RGB, but the normal was the mesh P normal. So I was handling two different pointers. And then you had to increase the mesh poly data, the P normal, and so on. So I like this better. Everything is contained. It even makes more sense. Now you might say, why don't I do the same vertex normal on vertices? It depends what you do. I could do it, but I leave it for now. There are some structures, I have point data, line data, which I need to think about. But at some point, you know, every time I see it, I say, hey, I might refactor it in a different thing. And this way you never move on. You just don't. So okay, I'm going to get back to what was I doing and why I was adding the quad. So this is the new engine, this is the old engine. The old engine that I changed things that I'm going to pass to the new. Yeah, there is another thing. Right now I'm not using something that I should be using. I'm gonna go to the new engine. To show you that on the render but only for the texture guru probably. I have this use triangle gradients which I have disabled. It is only on the texture guru. Because I wanted to test something, make it work, test something for performance. And prepare edge list texture guru. This is an alternative. And calculate. Maybe I can show that a bit. Normally, fine, I'm gonna make this black to not blind you again, but this is also blinding. Normally when you have a triangle, and maybe you might have UV coordinates, that's very big. That's still big. You have UV coordinates in this point and then you have other. Oh my god, what's going on? Yumi then V. I need a better rider. Okay, maybe I'll write it. I think I need a pen. U1 V1. So you have your texture coordinates U2 V2. I really need some light pen for these things. Anyways, what happens is that you interpolate from U0 V0 to U1 V1. That's one way. And you interpolate from U0 V0 to U1 V1. And for each scan line horizontally, for each pixel scan line, you might interpolate again. So that as I move horizontally, I know the step I need to add, the fixed point step to go from UV from this side to this side, to interpolate the texture coordinates. And that's the same for the coloring, guru setting and a lot of other values. And that's the first thing I ever did when I did this demo. That was one of the earliest engines I have done. That was the first time I went from plasma iron to zoomers to actual 3D object with guru setting and environment mapping. And I was like, whoa, man. And if you look the old code, which the code is released, if you look at the code, I was doing this thing. But that means for every, maybe we can go here. I have it in both sides, but okay. For every scan line, this is drawing a single edge, a single scan line, and then it moves to the next, to the next, to the next. Right now I'm doing, you know, color UV Z on the left and the right side divided by the dx, the length in pixels, and those are in fixed point, so that's okay, it's integer. But this is a much bigger number. It's converted to fixed point. So I find the steps so that later I add the steps. Much later I figure out that I didn't need to do that. Because a classic article by Chris, he also talks about perspective corrects, which I have not done. And there are things I could study here to make it more proper. Because there are some issues with sub-pixel accuracy that I'm still... He figured out, I mean, it might have been known that for every scan line, what I do here, these values are the same. The interpolation happens to be constant mathematically. That's why in PlayStation 1, when you have two triangles and there is this distortion, it's because one triangle has distinctively different interpolation from the other. And there is a sudden gap. But so if I was to print those values for every scan line in a single triangle, each of the values would be different, but the C value, for example, the DC would be the same. It could be roughly the same because there are variations. Because mathematically there was an equation, it's a bit longer, that gives you directly for a whole triangle the step. You don't need to calculate it scan line per scan line. Now this was very essential in the past. In GameBark 32 that had an ARM processor, the division was very costly and I was doing a multiply by reciprocal multiplication. So that was equal to 1 by dz, but the 1 was multiplied by fixed point something was shifted. And I ended up doing like this on there, and still worked. I mean, still I was doing some nice 3D. That the speed was alright, but it could have been better if I didn't do that. Much later, I've used the new method, but the new method gives me some artifacts. And also in a modern PC, this is not as costly anymore. So maybe okay. No, let's test it here. So if I enable this, and hopefully it's gonna build because maybe I changed things. So this is not up now. I have to switch to the only mode I'm currently testing it, which is the Guro shading, Guro tech. And you see the white stuff, you see the artifacts. I'm guessing something now. I found recently some other artifacts. So this is the version that is supposed to be doing this. I need to figure out this random crash. So maybe I'll do something which is performance test and base viewer. I'm gonna set the base viewer hopefully in that. And now I'm looking directly to the, with a nice sunrise, the rabbit. Now if I switch to, I'm looking at it from the back, the light is on the other side. Guro texture, I see the dot, so it must be using the new method. Now the frame rate is 40, 54, 55 is there. It might be better. It might. I'm gonna have, this is random. This is not something. The call stack is just pointing to something irrelevant. It's something I have to fix. So now, if we got 54, 57. Now it might be better. Gradients might be better. If I remove the gradient method, But I have to switch to grow texture for the actual testing. This 53, 51, 52. It might be a bit less, but very 1-2 frames. So at some point I thought, since the advantage is not big, you're not gonna get anything in the call stack. It's the random crashes I'm getting. This is something I used in older demos where those divisions were very costly. I think I used the gradients, and also here is how they are calculated. I have a struct, of course, so in this case I don't do the division per scan line anymore, I just get directly the values to use. And then these are constantly added here. That's during the horizontal rendering per scan line, yeah. And technically, I have subdivided. I have separated. This is called. I hope this is inlined. That's the other thing. And technically, yeah, that's okay. No more divisions. I need to find now. I give the 3 screen points, and this whole thing, I tend to get the values here. This whole thing, I do it for C, Z, U, V. This is a common term. Is it the denominator? Yeah, it's basically this one. Yeah. It does work. Now, in our demo, Aleph0, now the main 3D engine is not mine, it's from Nuclear. But I used my 3D engine only in one part, because I wanted to make a specialized rendering for the 3D object that goes into the water. I wanted to make one that does something like Z buffer, but for Y, for vertical. That's a Y buffer, so that I know which pixels to make ripples. Now this object, I gained a bit by using the gradients. Maybe 4 frames. I went from 30 to 34 for rendering this thing in a certain distance. So it still wasn't that big. Because the division on the Pentium 1 was more costly, especially the integer division. I think I was doing fixed point integer anyway. So I ended up using the gradient, but in order to avoid these issues, my texture coordinates have some edges. So I don't map from 0 to 1, I map from 0.05 to 0.95. So I did hacks there, but now I don't want to do hacks. And this method, it has issues, maybe because I don't do the subpixel rendering well. And I tried to fix it. Last time I had another bug because now these coordinates are flowed now, but I have to get the range of the texture from 0 to the texture width -1, texture height -1. Last time I had a different issue in the regular renderer because I wasn't doing that. I have an issue where you might see it here. Okay, this is the old engine. I switched to the other project. Okay. Notice that arrow there. Notice the dots there. It goes to the edge of the... And I think it is because of something that changed on the other side. So this is... And now I have a get texture color, huh? I don't have it on the other side. So maybe I can find it like this. Now, I do the no-z buffer. Oh, I haven't text. But I multiply by... No, that's correct. Okay, it's not that. It is the fixed point in UV. U plus DU and so U0 edge. I might tell you what it is. So when I get the U and V, the mistake I did, I multiplied with texture width. If texture width is 256, the UV coordinates go from 0 to 1. So now you would have from 0 to 256. And you want to go to 255. The last pixel must be 255. So that's one mistake I did, and I corrected it on the other side. And now the arrow, there is no Y. There is some other pixel, but that's because it's black. There is no Y line. Because it goes on the other side and it goes out of bind for the texture. Now you would have to correct this for everything. Like here. The other thing I might plan to do is to make some unified version that doesn't harm performance. And there are some others have done this. Others have done this thing. That's the old engine. Here is the new engine where we use it. I wonder if it's the no, U multiplied by text with -1. What would happen if it doesn't make sense? It's okay, I think I know. Yeah, that's even worse. Oh god. I know I need to fix it, but now it's something I need to investigate in another way. Maybe the division, you know, maybe there's so many reasons. Now, I have handled this. Let's see this one. I do multiply by text with -1. and the color shade is -1. That was another mistake I did, and I have seen it in some Goro shading experiment where I put the value to full 1 and it was bleeding to the other side. If they've used triangle else, and I'm doing that here too. I'm getting the UV on the left side. I'm still dividing here, but that's another part. That doesn't happen per scan line. Why would I divide here? Because of this is the vertical edges. I go vertically. And I'm feeling I'm interpolating vertically. It could be anything, it could be... And you could... That could make it crash. I've tried to fix that before with hacks, but... But the thing is, I have to fix it in a normal way. So I put some higher value to change the... Wait, I thought... And it still does it. Okay, maybe this mode also crashes it for the reason that it's reading outside. Yeah, because of division by 0, man. Now, I'm just testing. I'm doing junk code just to test if this ever gets fixed by... It doesn't seem to. Could be anything. You could go -1 or something, like I don't like you. It's gonna crash. Division by 0. No. This is not how you fix stuff like this anyway. You know, and that's the point where I said, okay, how many frames does looking at this very complicated polygon? Okay, how many frames do I get by this? Oh my god. Forget it. How many frames? 55 even, okay. And how many frames without it? If I say I just want a good visual and performance is not... Okay, now it's worse, or did I not switch to the right one? Ah, that's the right one. No, that's the right one. Yeah, okay, it's from 50 to 55. So it is kinda important. Previously it was very close, 52 to 54. Anyway, the thing is, at some point, I decided that, you know what? Even that crashes. Okay, I know this is As I say, this is where I have to see the skill. And he mentioned it. There are some very nasty bugs. It's a small, it's 50 minutes. This is where I have to see it. The reason I'm not debugging it now is now if I go to the call stack right now, I have no idea first of all. It doesn't crash in a place that makes sense and then I go and say, oh, that was a null pointer, it went out of bounds, I have to... It also makes me thinking, I don't particularly like, if I was putting asserts in various places, I don't use asserts. And if I was putting asserts when I started, if there was something nasty that overrides something and it doesn't crash when it should, I would know it and I would catch. Because those are the worst bugs. This is not a bug where, okay, I crashed there, exactly, and yeah, I see it's a null pointer, or I'm getting out of bounds because of this, or there is a division by 0 something. These are the things where the project grew up and it's over now. And I need to do this thing. There are some methods to, from time to time, make Windows crash things much easier. There was a thing he mentioned that will allocate the things you allocate. It will allocate with traps around it, which will make it much slower, but you will get tons of crashes very easily. And even regular applications, if you run this thing in Windows, regular applications you use every day will crash all the time because they are doing wrong stuff. And maybe that will help me find this, because now these are intermittent crashes that make no sense. And this is scary because at some point as this thing grows, I'm gonna have a bad time if I don't. Anyway, that was the thing, that this one, it might be an optimization, but if you don't do correctly, and there is a thing about sub-pixel accuracy. If you don't do everything correctly, now I could look and study and make it correctly. You are gonna, you know, the interpolation might be 1 pixel too short or 1 pixel too long. Might not be precise. And that's why I get the dot. And why with the other method? The other method I show you, you know, that method where I had the triangle and I was going line by line and I was dividing all the time. This was more stable because every line, you know, I want to be from this U coordinate to that V coordinate. Divide exactly, give me that. Don't guess an approximate common interpolator for all the scan lines. I mean, it's not guessing, it's finding, but it's... So when you do this method, at least you can be sure that things are more easily... You're not go overread from a texture outside of bounds. You're not gonna over interpolate or under interpolate. Because you are defining it exactly. I want to go from point A to point B and give me the exact step. And if there are, you know, when you move from scanline to scanline, pixel by pixel, things are... Now, we haven't done any coding, but that's okay. I was describing things. This is still ongoing, but I'm not gonna go. It's already 15 minutes. I could tell you very briefly the thing I was doing, I was investigating and also asking Grog about this and then reading stuff. I was thinking of using vectors for some of the mesh data, and I wasn't sure if vectors, STD vectors, when you just read them, if you read from a vector, I wasn't sure if it's gonna be as fast as a regular vector. And everybody tells you that that's the truth. You don't have to worry, you don't have to think that because it's some abstraction. It's the same, it's bullshit to think that people, and if you search, there are so many posts. Oh, it's not. I made benchmarks, and everybody's saying no, this is bullshit. It is the same. It is the same. All the experts say it's the same, and it is generally the same. And I was asking Grog, okay, what does it do when you give it an index? And also when you push into the vector, it's gonna do a lot of allocations unless you use reserve. So here I also tried with resize reserve. Now I use resize because I don't use pushback. I use those as regular arrays. So I wanted to take some of my old effect and say, okay, I'm gonna do it with classical arrays. You see now, you have to see the frame rate is variable because it's not very stable. Also, if you move this here and SDL is not rendering the buffer, this is gonna go to 1700. There is another reason why those plasmas are so fast. This is 720p, by the way. So you're gonna expect when it stabilizes 1000 to 1700. And now STD arrays are the same, and I was expecting them. One 700. And I was told that, you know, with vectors, now I have this method. This is initializing in the beginning, so I didn't want to use pushback, I didn't want to use everything. Now, with pushback, you might, if I was using pushback, I would have to do reserve and not resize, so that it just pre-allocates this thing, but the base is still at 0 if you use pushback. If you do resize, it's gonna move later after size. So if you do resize, I can just access it like that. But if I do reserve, it might be okay to do pushback some value. But we are not even doing that. I know there are some traps when you add stuff to the vector. You have to be careful of that to not have allocated. My question, and that was a question to Grog. Grog also said, no, it's the same as arrays. Same performance. Don't worry. Don't listen to anyone, all the experts know that. So I did this so that everything is the same. I have not changed any other code. I was unrolling that before. I even tried the non-unrolled version just to make sure. I tried some variations. I tried this one because here in Visual Studio it also takes time with those ones. Okay, grow. It's at 700 from 1000. It's not the same here. But everybody says it's the same. And it's 1000 instead of 1700. I even have a benchmark thing, by the way. If I press B, it's gonna freeze. Now it's gone. Yeah, it runs it very fast, so that I don't just play with. Because people say, yeah, that's not how you benchmark stuff, man. I don't take this as a valid benchmark because you are just looking at frame rate counter, and even the frame rate counter is jumping up and down. What I do is I wait for it to stabilize and I get the higher value, and I'm like, okay, it's about there. If the difference is big, which here it's big from 700 to 1000, I know something is wrong. But then I did that too. I ran the effect several times without rendering, so that I don't have the overhead of SDL plating the, and I get the actual 1000, around 1000. Now if I go for that, it also compiles faster with the other one. I'm gonna press B. Render several frames. 1800 even. It's even higher. Let's press it again. It is varying also. It's even better. 1.8. So, and I tried also on the rotozoomer. I tried it. Now the rotozoomer, obviously the frame rate is too high. And the rotozoomer, because it's bilinear, there is no much difference. Here I found the same. Now if I use the non-bilinear, I went from 900 to 1000. With the vectors are suffering a bit. So I guess if the rest of your code is doing heavy calculation, maybe it's insignificant. But that bothered me because I know that. And what I did, was it a thing of a compiler? It bothered me because it's common wisdom that when you read a vector, it does exactly what the array does. It's stupid to claim that it's different. Now I use Visual Studio because I'm used to the environment and the debugger and so on, and I never had time. But many times, this is where I ported it on the code blocks, GCC and so on. Also, I try to be sure on Visual Studio properties, C++ optimization for release, O2, I tried OX. Of course in debug mode vectors are way slower because it's gonna do bound checkings. So I would expect that in debug it's way slower. Not just it is from 50 frames to 300. The regular array does 300 and the std array or vector go back to. So here I'm getting that. I don't have the benchmark here. Haven't tried. 1700. And now I'm gonna compile the std array. Sorry, that's the std array. Okay, that's also close to 1000. The std array was fine. So this is GCC. Again with optimization and so on. O3 optimized fully for speed. And now that's with the STD vector, and you see 1000 and 1700 and so on. So finally I can see in GCC whether you access this fseen RGB as a vector or an array, the speed is the same. But on Visual Studio it's not, and I'm not doing something. So when people claim, I mean, in most cases you would be fine, but it's not entirely true. And here, MSVC latest 02. I also tried 0x. Now, I could also ask my Visual Studio to output the code also. And I was looking at that previously and I haven't had the time to do this. C versus vec. Now the vec is initializing thing, that's not very... It's initializing something for the vector. The thing that happens after might be important, the similarities now. Render plasma. We get something, we add it to something else. Outside I might LEA, load effective address. I might get something that I might also add. Maybe this R11 decoder pointer add, and then I write it. Add the pointer 4 bytes to the side. I also have to read the RGB thing in some option. Now, if you see, this is this, and this seems to be this. Or, sorry, you see STD vector, move R6 from some pointer, STD vector allocate. What is this? STD vector allocate. Is this a constant or is this a LEA that? So I think these are, when in one line I'm saying fcnix or in Godbolt, read from this, add, okay, this is, I calculate this outside, and then this, and then RGB, it could be this, somewhere there might be RGB, okay, maybe that's the RGB thing. Movie 6D gold point, and then this writes back to the video RAM. So this thing also, when it reads, Visual Studio is doing some extra stuff. It's reading something extra that adds to a pointer and moves it. Moves it is this conditional move. So every read that is direct with the array is doing extra stuff. And each of these lines is only one of these lines. Move 6, add 6, add 8. And you see now that at least, and I had the proof, I tried it with the rotozoomer, I tried it with the new plasma. From 400 frames it went to 450 to 350 or something like that. So there was, or from 500 to 430 or something like that. So there is overhead. Here I'd use the ping pong FC, and for every read it doesn't do the same as if this would be a, so that thing is not the same as this thing for when you're accessing in Visual Studio. Go figure. Now all experts will tell you no, it's the same, and indeed on GCC is the same. Probably also on C-Lang. Now when I put GCC, I was getting some other code. It's a bit confusing to figure it out. And that's finished, and maybe that's where we finish, guys. And that was the dilemma, and my dilemma was that in my engine I had this mesh generator, and I use C-style code. I use some pointers to hold current address, and I'm having function that says add the next indices, add triangle indices, add quadrant, and I thought, hey, maybe that would be nice with a vector. Which is fine, but I don't want to read that data later. I don't want to change my mesh header to use vectors if I don't really need vectors. Maybe because of things like that. It could be insignificant because I'm doing more calculations. I don't know, man. I don't know. This became bigger, but... And... It's just, still, I haven't done coding, I was just explaining things, and I was explaining the thing with the... But that's what's gonna be. Maybe next time we will write more code. I still have to refactor from the fork the good stuff to the other side. Maybe I can go do both ways. Because especially that grid floor is gonna be accelerated enough. And I might try to generate objects which are subdivided by grid quads, by regular grids. And I also have some other grand idea about this. I'm having an idea about different data structure that will define a surface with minimal data, and then the subdivision will happen after the transformation. So I'm not gonna generate many points, but later I will have to render micro triangles. But that will also work well with loading, because on the spot I can I will have an abstract surface with one corner point, two vectors, and no other points, and then I will generate the points later and the triangle. This could be level of detail in real time. Maybe kinda like a geometry shader. I have some ideas. Anyway guys, this is it. See you next time. Maybe we'll code something, not talk much. But those things are also nice. The weird thing with the vector stuff. The other experiment. I was doing some other experiments with performance. The same thing. I should have a fade out button. Bye!